His tablet lit up on the couch with a notification while he showered. I glanced down and saw my name in the preview, spelled right, with a little heart emoji like it was cute. I opened it. One swipe. No look. It was a private group chat. Not cheating. Not work. Not anything I've been bracing for. It was worse because it was so casual, like this was just another app he checked between laundry and dinner. The chat was full of photos of women taken from behind in grocery aisles, on escalators, waiting at bus stops. Close shots, cropped faces, always cropped, like that made it not personal. The comments under them weren't compliments. They were notes. Same route. Works late. Easy to follow. Headphones. No ring. Door on the left. It read like people swapping tips on how to steal a bike. My throat tightened and my hands went cold. I scrolled anyway, faster, like if I got to the bottom, I'd find the part where it was a joke and I'd laugh and feel stupid and safe. I didn't find that part. Then I saw me. Not a selfie. Not something I'd ever sent him. A picture of my back as I unlocked my door. Time-stamped. Taken from the end of my hallway. I stared until the screen blurred. I could pick out the exact hoodie I wore when I didn't want to be talked to. My key halfway in the lock. The same scuff on the wall behind me I complained about when we moved in. That meant he wasn't guessing. He was there. He stood behind me in my own building like it was normal. My stomach did that cold drop thing and turned straight into rage. I scrolled and found a folder of screenshots, my posts, my old usernames, my mom's Facebook profile, my workplace address. There were maps pins. There were screen grabs of my Instagram highlights from years back. There was a screenshot of a comment my mother left under a photo of us. Her full name, her profile picture, like she was part of the damn collection. I saw a note about my usual closing shift, and my brain did this ugly little stutter because I hadn't told him my schedule that week. He shouldn't have known, but there it was typed out clean, like a plan. The water stopped. I didn't run. I stood there holding the tablet like a weapon, waiting for his footsteps, trying to keep my breathing quiet like that mattered. My hands shook hard enough the screen jumped in my grip. I kept thinking, don't let him talk you out of what you just saw. Don't let him make you doubt your own eyes. He came out and saw it in my hands, and his face changed immediately. No confusion, no shock, just calculation. He didn't even try the "what's wrong, babe" voice. He stepped forward and reached for it like it belonged to him, like I'd stolen something from him instead of the other way around. I backed away. He grabbed my wrist and squeezed until my fingers tingled. He told me I was overreacting while he tried to pry the tablet out of my grip. That calm tone made me see red. He kept saying it was nothing, that it was private, that I violated his privacy, like I'd kicked in his door. He kept his voice steady, like that steadiness made him right. His thumb dug into that soft spot under my wrist, right where your pulse is, and it wasn't accidental. It was control. It was him reminding me he could. I snapped. I headbutted him, not hard enough to break anything, hard enough to make him stumble and swear. His hands flew off me, and I used the moment like it was oxygen. I bolted for the door with the tablet tucked under my arm. I didn't grab shoes. I didn't grab my phone charger. I didn't grab anything except evidence. He chased. He didn't yell my name. He yelled threats. Short ones. Dirty ones. Like he'd been waiting to use them. It wasn't come back. It was what he'd do to me if I didn't. It was what he'd do to my stuff. It was how he'd make me hand it over. I won't write every word because it still crawls under my skin, but it wasn't a boyfriend fighting. It was someone who felt caught and didn't care if I got hurt. I hit the hallway and ran barefoot over the cold floor. My legs felt loose, like I was moving on adrenaline and nothing else. I hammered on my neighbor's door with my fist, and then my palm, and then my whole arm. I kept pounding until it opened. I didn't wait for permission. I shoved inside like my body knew that doorway was the only line between bad and worse. My neighbor's face went from annoyed to alarmed in 1 second. He saw my ex in the hallway behind me, closing in fast, not smiling, not pretending. My neighbor stepped forward without even thinking, like he was going to block a dog from charging. I stood behind him and called the cops with my hands shaking so bad I almost dropped the tablet. I could barely hit the buttons. I kept staring at the screen like it might disappear. I kept listening for my ex's footsteps like I could hear intent. My ex hovered in the hallway outside the neighbor's door. He didn't cross in, but he leaned in just enough to keep pressure on the space. He tried the nice guy routine again, suddenly soft, suddenly reasonable, calling it a misunderstanding, acting like I was having some dramatic episode. Then he'd slip, and the ugly would flash, and he'd spit something nasty, and then he'd smooth it right back down. Watching him switch like that was the part that scared me most. It wasn't panic. It was skill. When the cops showed up, he stood in the doorway, acting wounded like he'd been attacked, like I was the problem. He kept his shoulders loose. He made his voice gentle. He pointed at his forehead, like my head, but was the whole story. One officer looked at me with that tired expression that says, "Here we go, another couple fight." I felt my face go hot. I wanted to scream. Instead, I handed over the tablet, like it was the only thing keeping me from being labeled crazy. The officer opened the gallery, and his whole act collapsed. It wasn't dramatic. It was immediate. The officer's eyes changed. He stopped scrolling for a second, like he'd hit something that made him understand this wasn't a lover's spat. My ex tried to step closer, and the officer shifted the tablet away from him without raising his voice, like swatting a hand from a hot stove. My ex started pleading, then snarling, then pleading again, like a switchblade flipping open and shut. He begged. He blamed me. He tried to bargain. He tried to intimidate. He did it all in the same breath. He said it was just guys, then said I was ruining his life, then said he didn't mean it, then hissed that I'd be sorry. He couldn't pick a mask and stick to it, because he wasn't a person in that moment. He was a cornered animal trying every door. The cops asked him questions he couldn't wriggle out of. Why did he have my address saved? Why were there screenshots of my mother? Why were there out notes? Why were there photos of women taken without them knowing? He kept talking, trying to flood the room with words so nobody could focus. It didn't work. One officer stepped into our apartment with me so I could grab essentials, and walking back inside felt like walking into a place that had been watching me. The couch was still there. The dishes were still in the sink. Everything looked normal. Nothing felt normal. I shoved clothes into a bag with shaking hands, grabbed my ID and keys, and left the rest like it was infected. When they finally cuffed him, it didn't look like justice. It looked like process, like paperwork, like a man still trying to get his way with his voice, even while his hands were behind his back. He twisted a look at me, and for a second, I saw pure hate in his eyes, clean and bright, no love anywhere near it. That look rewired something in me. It told me the sweet version of him wasn't real. It was a tool he used until it stopped working. After they took him out, my neighbor shut his door, and the hallway went quiet again, like it could swallow anything. I stood there with my bag digging into my shoulder, feeling like my skin didn't fit right. The cops gave me instructions and numbers and next steps, and all I could think was how many nights I'd fallen asleep next to him without locking my own mind. I didn't feel relief. I felt disgust that I'd slept next to that face and called it safe. My train skipped my stop and dumped me onto a half-lit platform with 3 other people who didn't look up. The doors shut and the car slid off like it had somewhere better to be. I stood there a second, pissed at myself for zoning out, then started walking because staying still in an empty station feels like putting a target on your chest. I heard someone pace match behind me, close enough that my backpack shifted from his breath. He didn't pass. He didn't fall back. He just stayed glued to my blind spot like that was his hobby. I sped up. He sped up. I slowed down. He did it too. No shuffle, no phone noise, no cough. Just steps, clean and patient. My skin went hot. That mix of fear and rage where you want to spin and scream, but you don't want to give them the satisfaction. I cut left toward the staff booth because light, glass, and a bored employee usually equal safety. He cut left too, like we were linked. My phone buzzed from an unknown number. Don't go upstairs. I stopped so hard my heel squeaked. He stopped too, then bent down like he was tying his shoe. No lace moved. His hands hovered over the knot like he'd never seen shoes before. He kept his head low, but his eyes stayed on me. I stared at the text again. Same number, no name, no other messages. I hit call, and the screen flashed calling, then dropped to silence like the line didn't exist. I tried again. Same thing. I held the phone to my ear anyway, listening to nothing, pretending I had control of anything. I forced my legs to move, but I didn't go up. I turned and headed down the platform toward the maintenance corridor. In my head, it sounded smart. Cameras, locked doors, authorized personnel only, some control room watching screens. In real life, it was just me walking toward a darker corner while a stranger followed me like he'd paid for the tour. I tried to keep him in the corner of my eye without giving him a clean look at my face. I wanted to remember him. I also didn't want him to see me trying. The service door at the end sat propped open with a chunk of wood. Not trash, not a rock. A cut wedge placed on purpose. It looked fresh, clean edges like it had been shoved there minutes ago. The gap was just wide enough to tempt you through without making noise. He spoke behind me, low, like a warning and an order at the same time. Not upstairs. My stomach dropped. Same words as the text, same timing. I didn't answer. I backed away. He surged forward the second I moved, not sprinting, just eating distance fast, like he'd been waiting for the cue. His hand came out, already reaching for my wrist. I lunged for the red emergency intercom box, bolted to the wall. I yanked it open. I expected an alarm to scream and lights to flash. Nothing. It clicked on like a phone call, soft and dead. A little hum started, like I'd joined a line nobody attended. I shouted anyway, loud enough to scrape my throat raw. I slammed the button again and again, yelling help and call someone and a string of fucks because my brain ran out of polite words. I looked past him down the platform, trying to catch someone's eye. Nobody moved. He froze for half a second, then moved again, pissed now. I swung the metal intercom door into his face. It caught his cheekbone with a hard thud. He cursed and grabbed for me with both hands, full body intent, no pretending. His fingers snagged my sleeve. I jerked back and felt the fabric stretch. He grabbed my backpack strap and yanked. The strap bit into my shoulder and I staggered. For a beat, I thought, this is it. He's got contact. He's going to drag me through that open door and nobody's going to even look up. His other hand flashed from my wrist again, fast and confident, like he'd practiced that exact move. I ditched the backpack. I let it drop and twist it out. I kicked the wedge out from under the service door. The wood shot across the tile. I threw my weight into the door and slammed it shut between us. The latch caught. He hit the narrow window with his palm and leaned in close, eyes flat, like I'd just made his night inconvenient. He didn't beg. He didn't threaten. He just stared like he was waiting for me to run out of breath. I saw his mouth move, like he was talking through the glass, but I couldn't hear it and I didn't want to. I kept my back away from the door and kept my feet planted like I was bracing for a shove. I kept yelling. I kept hammering the intercom button even though it still only clicked and hummed. No siren, no flashing lights, just that stupid connected sound. Footsteps ran down the stairs, actual staff. 2 guys in vests, one with a flashlight, moving fast because my noise finally reached someone who cared about liability. The second their light swept the corridor, the guy by the door backed off. He didn't bolt. He just drifted away, quick and smooth, then melted into the shadows at the far end of the platform and disappeared the moment witnesses showed up. I pointed hard, like if I stabbed the air with my finger the guy would reappear. He went that way. One staff guy jogged. The other grabbed my dropped backpack and asked if I was hurt. I tried to answer and my voice cracked. My throat felt cooked. The jogging staff guy reached the far end, looked up the stairs, looked down the tunnel, then came back with nothing. I told him to block the stairs, block the exits, do anything. He said he couldn't detain anyone. I yelled that I wasn't asking for a citizen's arrest. I was asking him to stop a guy from walking away after he tried to grab me. He stared at me like I'd asked him to change the laws of physics. He asked what happened, and I talked too fast, tripping over my own words. He followed me. He texted me. He tried to grab me. The door was open. I show my phone. Don't go upstairs. He squinted like he was hoping it was a joke. The booth guy finally slid his window open a crack and asked why I was messing with the intercom. I snapped that someone tried to pull me into a service corridor. He frowned like I'd accused him personally. He asked why I went near the service door in the first place. That pissed me off so bad I almost started crying. Like I had to justify trying to live. The staff guys shut the service door and one of them picked up the wedge with 2 fingers. "This shouldn't be here," he said, and the way he said it made it sound like that was the only weird part. I told him it was placed on purpose. He said, "Maybe kids." I said kids don't pace match you and reach for your wrist. He didn't answer. I asked why the intercom didn't set off an alarm. One staff guy shrugged and said that sometimes it routes to control. I asked if control answered. He avoided my eyes. I told him to call police. The booth guy sighed like I'd asked him to mop a spill. One staff guy tried to steer me away from the door, like the real hazard was me standing in the wrong spot. I watched the stairs the whole time, waiting for the guy to pop back out like a prank. The other passengers finally looked up, annoyed, like my fear was a loud ringtone. Earbud guy gave me that tight jaw look. The woman in scrubs muttered something about people acting up. I wanted to spit on the tile. I just kept my phone up, ready to scream again. One staff guy asked if the man actually touched me. I said he grabbed my backpack strap and reached for my wrist. He nodded like that was borderline. I told him to fuck off with borderline. He told me to calm down. I told him to stop talking and make the call. He did, but he did it slow, like he was punishing me for being loud. Cops came late because it wasn't a stabbing, it was just a person who almost got grabbed. 2 of them walked down with that bored posture, eyes scanning for something obvious so they could close the loop. They asked me to repeat it. I repeated it. They asked if I knew him. I said no. They asked if I had issues with anyone. I said I got off a train. I showed them the message. One cop took a photo of my screen and told me unknown numbers can be spoofed, like that solved anything. The other one asked the booth to pull cameras. The booth guy said the cameras should cover the corridor. The cop asked what should meant. The booth guy said one camera had been acting up. I felt my stomach drop all over again. They opened the service door with a key and shone a flashlight down the corridor. It went back farther than I expected. Pipes overhead, doors on both sides, places to turn, places to disappear. The cop walked a few steps in, looked around, came back out. He said it was clear. I wanted to ask him how long clear stays true in a place like that. They walked the platform, checked the stairs, found nothing. They asked if I wanted an escort to the next train. I said yes, and even that felt gross, like I'd become someone who needed handlers. The booth guy asked if I knew him. I laughed once ugly. Like, yeah, I totally know the guy who texts me threats and tries to hurl me into a utility tunnel. The laundry room door was propped open with my own fucking shoe. I'd left it outside my apartment door earlier because the laces broke and I meant to throw it out. I remember stepping over it on my way to the stairs, thinking I'd deal with it later, because later is where I dump anything that annoys me. I came back down with a basket and detergent, pushed through the basement door, and saw the laundry room door cracked open with that same shoe jammed under it like a wedge. The light from inside cut across the hallway like someone left a fridge open. I stopped on the landing and just stared because the shoe was upstairs an hour ago. I walked in slow and kept my basket tight to my ribs. The washers hummed. Water swished. No voices, no earbuds, no coins dropping. Then I saw the vending machine light flicker, quick like someone bumped the cord, and right after that I heard the dryer door clunk shut, gentle like a person trying to be quiet. My chest tightened and I backed out without turning my back. I slipped behind the stairwell wall where the concrete makes a blind corner and pressed myself into it. I listened. Footsteps crossed the tile. Steady, not hurried. A key ring jingled. Not coins. Keys. A lot of them. Coins make that light rattle sound. These keys made a heavy clack, like they belonged to doors, not pockets. A man stepped in a hall wearing a building polo and a tool belt. He wasn't carrying tools. He was carrying my shoe in his hand like a joke, holding it by the heel and letting it swing. He looked up, saw me, and didn't flinch. No surprise, no hey, nothing. He smiled and started walking toward me, casual, like he planned to talk me into shutting up. That smile did something ugly to my stomach, because it said he expected me to freeze. I moved first and ran. I took the stairs 2 at a time. The basket banged my hip. I almost dumped my clothes everywhere, and I didn't even care. My phone was already in my hand. I hit 911 with my thumb and missed once because my hand was shaking. I hit it again and blurted my address like I was spitting out poison. The dispatcher started asking questions, and I answered in broken pieces because I couldn't get air. I heard him on the stairs behind me, but he didn't sprint. He followed like he had time, like he knew I couldn't disappear, like he knew where I lived. My hallway lights are motion sensors, so they popped on in chunks as I ran, bright, dark, bright. I slammed my door, threw the deadbolt, then turned and saw it. The key hook by the entrance was empty. My main keys were in my hand. The spare key I kept just in case was gone. My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. I stared at that bare hook like the key might magically appear, then my door handle twitched. My door handle twitched once, then again, controlled like someone testing a machine. A key slid into the lock. I heard the metal scrape, then the turn. It rotated halfway before the deadbolt stopped it with a dull resistance. Whoever it was didn't yank or swear. He tested the resistance like he was checking a measurement, like he was learning exactly what was stopping him. That calm made my skin crawl more than any violence would have, because it meant he wasn't improvising. He expected to be inside. My phone buzzed from an unknown number. Open up. Don't make it ugly. I felt my throat close. The text wasn't a guess. It wasn't a prank. It was a command like I owed him the door. I took a screenshot with shaking hands because I could already hear the future conversations where someone tells me I imagined it. I didn't answer. I shoved a chair under the knob and dragged my small table behind it, scraping the floor loud enough that I hated myself for making noise. I wedged the laundry basket in two because panic makes you do stupid math. I kept the 911 line open on speaker and breathed loud into the mic because silence felt like surrender. Outside, the key stopped, then turned again, then slid out. I heard the ring jingle close to my peephole, like he lifted it and let it drop, letting me hear how many keys he had. A soft tap hit the door frame. Not a knock, more like a reminder. I'm still here. I backed up until my calves hit the couch and stood there staring at the barricade, listening for the smallest shift of weight in the hallway. I heard the elevator ding once. I heard a neighbor's door open and close. I wanted to yell for help, but I pictured him hearing my voice and smiling wider. The dispatcher kept talking to me, keeping me anchored. She told me officers were on the way and to not open the door for anyone who wasn't police. Minutes stretched. My arms went numb from holding the phone. My stomach hurt from clenching. When the knocks finally came, they were loud and sharp and a voice said police. I still didn't move. I made them say it again. I asked the dispatcher to confirm units were actually outside my door because I didn't trust anything anymore, not even a uniform. When she confirmed it, I pulled the chair back with shaking hands and cracked the door. 2 cops stood there, scanning past me like they expected someone to lunge out of my apartment. I shoved my phone at them with the text on the screen. I showed them the empty key hook. One of them asked if I knew the guy, like this was a boyfriend thing, like I'd invited a man with my spare key to my door for drama. I snapped and told him I don't know any man who carries my fucking shoe around in the basement. The other cop's face changed then, just a little, like he finally heard me. They cleared the hallway first, walked the stairs, checked the basement door, then took me back down. The laundry room looked normal again, which made me furious. The vending machine still flickered. They opened dryer doors, shined flashlights behind machines, checked the little maintenance closet. No man, no stew, nothing but lint and that wet soap stink. After that, we checked the building's lockbox, where management keeps unit keys. I never paid attention to it before. The little metal door hung open. Inside was the log sheet with unit numbers and dates and signatures. My unit number was circled in pen. While we stood there, the manager showed up in slippers like he'd been dragged out of bed. He tried to act annoyed at me, not worried about the open lockbox. He kept saying it was for emergencies and only staff uses it. The cop asked him whose staff was who had the key to the lockbox door and where the security cameras were. The manager pointed at the ceiling like cameras might appear if he waved hard enough, then admitted there weren't any in that hallway. He started blaming vendors and turnover and anything that wasn't him. I told him to stop talking like I was the problem and start telling us who signed that log. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Not highlighted, not underlined. Circled, like a target. The cop took photos and asked who had access, and all I could think was, too many people. Back upstairs, nothing in my apartment was stolen. No that it was dumped. No jewelry missing. Just my missing spare key and my shoe used as a prop. The cop told me to change locks. He said it like it was easy, like I could just go buy safety off a shelf. I didn't even wait a day. I went straight to the office the next morning with the report number on my phone. The manager started with the calm voice people use when they're trying to minimize you. He tried, maybe you misplaced it. He tried, our staff wouldn't do that. He tried, the lockbox gets left open sometimes, like that was normal and not insane. When I said I was changing my locks today, he tried to argue about costs like we were negotiating cable bill. He kept saying policy, like policy is a force field. I told him to go fuck himself and watched his face twitch like he'd never heard a tenant talk back. He started to get loud, like volume would make him right. I got louder back. I told him someone used building keys to pick my unit out and then try to walk in while I was inside. I told him if he made me pay for locks after that, I'd go over his head, I'd put the police report in every inbox I could find, and I'd tell every neighbor exactly what happened. He went tight around the mouth and finally caved, acting like he was doing me a favor. I called a locksmith that afternoon and waited in the hall while he worked because I didn't trust anyone from the building near my door anymore. The new lock clicked into place and it still didn't feel like a win. It felt like a bandage. I threw out every spare I could find and shoved the rest of my keys into a drawer, like hiding them would fix anything. I kept replaying the calm way that key turned in my lock, stopped only by the deadbolt. I kept picturing my shoes swinging from his hand like a signal. That night, I slept with the lights on, waiting for the sound of a key turning again.